Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Simply Psyched Psychology Made Easy. My name is Achal Taivade and today we will be discussing some common terms related to personality. These terms are quite confusing and often used overlappingly with the term personality, and therefore these are often asked in MCQs for various examinations including UGC NET. And one also needs to know this distinction if you are doing a research in personality and related areas. So let's begin. The most common terms that are often confused with the term personality are temperament and trait. The first thing which we will be seeing is temperament. Let's begin with temperament first. Temperament is one's characteristic way of reacting that are more innate. Temperaments are one's characteristic ways of reacting that are innate. These are biologically based and are in part shaped by hereditary and genetic elements. Whereas personality is a product of one's biological as well as social environments. So temperament is a very biological term, whereas personality includes social environment factor as well along with the biological factor. Temperament is identified from early childhood and it is the first part of personality that shows up in an infant. It is the temperament of a baby that makes it easy to handle or very difficult to handle. And as the baby grows up and interacts with the environment, its personality shapes up through the course of his development. Temperament is a basic inherited manner of one's behavior. Temperament is a more permanent and it always stays with an individual. It forms the foundations of one's personality. So no matter what happens, but the basic temperament of an individual always stays with him. One just learns to use the temperaments in a situationally appropriate ways as he or she develops in the course of his social interaction. Temperamental differences are observed in all the animals, but personality is something that is unique to individual differences in humans. You might have seen your cat having a particular temperament of behavior. So that is common to all the animals, but it is humans who have a element of personality. Now, temperament is an important aspect of personality, but personality is much broader concept. Therefore, we need to know that temperament is a very narrow concept, or it's a very basic concept rather, and personality is a very broad concept. Temperament is one of the aspect of personality, but it is not an entire part of personality. It is not completely a personality. Temperament is a very important aspect of personality, but personality is a very broad concept. Now let's begin, or let's try to understand the concept of trait. So let's see, what is a trait? Traits are relatively stable, persistent and specific ways of behavior. Trait is a tendency to act in a particular manner. Traits are consistent and they are stable over time. The most important thing when we talk about traits to remember is that traits are consistent and stable over time. Those are relatively stable and persistent patterns of one's behavior. Those are relatively stable. Okay, those are not completely stable. It's not completely rigid. They are flexible, but they are relatively stable. So in most of the situations, you will see an individual behaving in a particular manner because of that particular trait which a person has developed. As the children mature, their maturation permits them to the development and expression of new personality traits. So trait is a is slightly at a higher level than temperament, but it is not as wide as personality. Okay, so the more narrow range of temperament traits are seen in infants, and it expands into more complex network of traits in the school age years. So let's say if a child who was difficult to handle, or who was a very cranky child as an infant, so as this child grows up and starts going into school, you will see that child as showing a trait of aggression or a trait of neuroticism. So that is or a trait of impulsiveness, we can also say that, right? So the trait of impulsiveness is shown by a child who was having a very difficult to handle temperament as a infant. So as the child grows up, the temperaments show up in a more complex patterns of traits. Now during each of the phase of early development, the structure of trait is likely to be different, and new traits become more apparent as the child grows up, but these traits are very much inconsistent with the basic temperament of an individual. An example of trait can be an irritable versus an easygoing infant, whereas an example of trait can be being extrovert. Okay, so temperament typically refers to an earlier form of these traits, and personality refers to the later forms of the traits. Personality is much broader than personality traits. For example, we can say that someone has a charismatic personality. Such a person might have traits of extraversion, conscientiousness, emotional stability, etc., and an easygoing or a happy-go-lucky temperament. I hope with this example you are having more clarity in terms of all of these three terminologies. Now let's try to see some more concepts which are not as complex but still are confused with the term personality sometimes by many people. So let's see those concepts as well. So the other term which are important and are often confused with personality are habit and values. Try to understand that one's habit is a overlearned model of behaving. What does it mean? When you have learned to do something in a particular way and that learning is overlearned, so you tend to behave in that manner without even realizing it. But that is also a part of your personality, but again it's just one part of it. Personality is a very much broader range. Then values. Values are the goals and ideals that are considered important and worthwhile to achieve. So values have a more moral side and goals and ideal side towards it as compared to the other aspects of personality. So I hope with this all of you have got a clarity, all of you have received some clarity in terms of these overlapping concepts. As we will be going further with more and more lectures about this thing, it's specifically about the trait approach of personality. At that point as well, you will get more clarity in these. Thank you very much for listening to my lecture. Have a good day. Thank you.